So I want us to begin by setting the building levels, rather putting the building levels in place. So in our case, we are modeling a simple residential project, which is only going to have the ground floor and a roof. So in our case, we are going to have like 3 levels in place. So we'll have a level for the ground floor, which is going to be at 0 elevation height. We'll have a level for the ceiling because we want to have our ceiling plans in place, and we will also have a level for the roof, which is going to be at an elevation of like let's say sill to story height of 3000 millimeters. That's 3 meters, and from there we can now start creating the project. So I would suggest we go to the project browser. So under project browser, click on one of these elevations, and that is going to open up the levels that I was talking about. And I want the very first level to be renamed to ground floor level. So I'm going to click here, double click. That is going to allow me to rename it, and then I'll select that and write ground floor. So our ground floor is going to be at 0. Click on OK. Our ground floor is going to be at 0, and then from where we have the ground floor, the next floor is going to be our ceiling level, which I suggest we'll have that at 2800 mm, and we'll click on this and rename it to ceiling level. So that is going to be our ceiling level. Click outside and click on yes to rename the corresponding views. We have ground, ceiling, and the next is going to be our now roof. Yes, roof level. So back to architecture tab, and here we have the level. So from where we have the ceiling level, this one is going to be like, let's say, to get 3000 we'll have 200. So here we have, so go to architecture, click on level. From here we have 200. Should be having 200 like that. Then you can just move it to this point here. Click to place it, select that. So you can be able now to click on that point, then you can elongate it up to where we have that. Then because this is now our roof level, and us to rename it to roof level, enter, and click on yes to have that renamed. Take a look at the project browser. You are going to see an update in terms of the floor plan. So we have a ceiling level, we have a ground floor level, we have a roof level, and a site. These are the ones that have been created. Our elevations, building elevations, remain the same. We have an east, north, south, and west elevation. So we are done with building levels. So these ones are going to appear both in our 3D and all the corresponding elevation views. So if you look at the north, you have the same, south as the same, and west elevation as the same. So let's, because we are not using these ones, just close them and go back to the ground floor. If you want to look at what we have in the 3D view, you go up here under view, you have 3D view, click. You can use this flywheel to rotate, orbit like that, and you can see we have those building levels set in place. So go back to the floor plan view, click to exit, click to close the 3D window, and then we want to start by putting in place a construction grid. So under the architecture tab, at the end here we have a grid. So if you click on grid, here under properties, you're going to have the properties for this grid shown. If you click on edit type, this is going to bring you to this point where you are now able to customize the properties of this grid element that we have put in place. So you can see the family here is a system family, which is a grid, and the type, if you click on the drop down here, you're going to see the type. Already we have 6.5 mm bubble selected, so you have options for a 6.5 mm bubble custom gap and a 6.5 mm bubble gap options. So I want to use the ones that are already selected. Down here we have type parameters. So you have a parameter and a value. You have graphics here, which we are looking at. So here is the simple. We have a M grid, add circle. We are going to see that when we place the grids. We have control for like segment weight and color, segment pattern, and non-plan simple views. So we are good with that. So just click OK. Then we'll create our first grid here, which is going to be a vertical one. We have like 4 grids from named A, B, C, and D with the specific spacings. So here I'm going to start with the very first one, which is going to be our first grid element. So let's say click away from that. You see this is our grid 1, and I want this to be A. So double click and type A. That is our very first grid. And what I'm going to do is get back to architecture tab again, activate grid, and then I want to create a grid with an offset from this at 2400 mm, and this is going to be my grid B. Just select it, select, modify, then extend it to the other. So that is our grid B. Place it there. I want to create another vertical grid, which is going to be our grid C, and that one is 1200 mm from grid B. So click on this. We'll have an offset of 1200 mm, and here you have your grid C in place. Then you can be able to select it to modify, and then you click on that up to where we have the other ones. So you're moving it up to that point, and then we'll adjust this from this end up to there. It snaps. So we have our grid A, B, and C in place. So I also want to create a grid D, 3600 mm from where we have grid C. So yeah, it's going to go up to 3600. Enter. So our grid D is going to be created, and then click to place it. And that's our vertical grids. We have our vertical grids in place. So just before we continue with that, let's try to set the units. So we have a command UN, which is going to open the project units, and under project units, here I want to select my discipline to be, so I'm seeing energy, piping, electrical, HVAC, structural, common. I'm not seeing architectural discipline. So let's say I have common there. The length is going to be measured in millimeters. My area is going to be in square meters. My volume is going to be in cubic meters, which is I'm okay with that. We'll have my angles in degrees, slopes in degrees. Currency is going to be what? Rounding in 2 decimal places. Unit simple is not indicated. I'm in Kenya. I would like to use Kenya shillings, but it's not here. So I think with none will be okay. Click on OK. Mass density is going to be kilograms per cubic meter, which is okay. And decimal simple or digit grouping will look like what we have here. So I think these settings are okay for my project. They actually represent the units that I use for my actual projects. So click on OK. We have that set. We can get back to working on our grid lines. So before we continue, I want to confirm whether the spacing that we have here is in the right spacing. So I'll go to annotate, and dimensions here. I have aligned dimension. If I click on that, I'll be able to put some dimensions in place, so I can be able now to reference from that point and know that what I put in place here is the correct thing. So those are now the construction grids for the vertical ones. We have like other horizontal ones, and they run from number 1 to number 10. So we want to get back to the architecture tab, activate the grid, and then start creating our horizontal grid lines. So let's say we have our first grid here, and modify this so that we have this starting at number 1, and then the next from there is spaced at 1500. So just click or rather move your cursor up to that point until it snaps. Then you can be able to type the spacing as 15, and you have your next. You have the other one the same as 15, and you can place the next one there. Grid number 4 is spaced at 1100 from number 3. So here 1100 from number 3, and you place it there. You have grid number 5 spaced at 2000 millimeters from number 4. Still click and place it there. You can be able to use the escape key here, so that that gives you an option of moving away from the grid that you placed, and you can now be able to work on the next one. So grid number 6 is spaced at 1400 from number 4. So we have 1400 like that. Number 7 is also 1400 from 6. So 1400, enter from 6, escape. Number 8 is 1900 from that one, like that. Number 9 is 1100 from this. So just the same process. Takes some time, but I'm doing this because this is supposed to be a beginner tutorial, and I want you to grasp every concept and get to do everything step by step without having to look for shortcuts. So our last grid here is spaced at 600 mm from the other one. So we have our grid system in place, but if you look at these ones, they are very elongated, and I want to be able to just reduce that up to a certain point, like there. That will be okay. Yes, and then we can also use annotate, align the dimension to confirm whether these horizontal grids are spaced at the correct spacing that I want us to use for the project. So click to place it. First one is 1500, 1511, 2000. Yeah, so that is the spacing. That is the spacing that we have. And I'll be able to maybe share this project file. I'll look for a way of sharing this project file so that you can download it and follow along with while you're working on your own project.